Hi guys, welcome to Artfully Created. This is my first card in my series called Use It or Lose It. And if you didn't get my introductory video, it's going to be where I'm using everything in my stash. I'm mixing and matching different brands simply because I just don't have the funds to keep buying new, and I imagine it's very difficult for a lot of you out there as well who have families or working on a budget. So I'm going to be revisiting things that I haven't used in a long time and just mixing and matching. So some things might be retired or no longer available, and I do apologize for that, but I'm hoping that I can teach you to use what you have, that we don't have to try to keep up with all the other brands that come out with new. Believe me, I love new and I love buying everything, but I just don't have the budget for it right now. So this, we're going to make a card topper using this stamp set, the Framelits Perfect Pines. We're going to use snowflake stamps from Unity Stamps. We're going to use some distress inks, some close to my heart inks, and some shimmer cardstock and some colored cardstock. So sit back, relax, and let's see what we can make. So the first thing that we do is we're making our own background paper with the snowflake stamps, and we're going to emboss it with the white embossing powder, heat set it, and then excuse me, then do some ink blending with some dye-based inks. So one of the first things I do is I'll just put the larger snowflake stamps I have on a block and just randomly lay them down, and then there's still a lot of white space, so I will go in and fill it up with some smaller snowflake stamps. And that way you can have big ones and small ones. And you're just randomly sticking them on. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. It doesn't matter if they overlap a bit, which some may. But it's nice that you can even use stars and you can still put a variety of stamps. I am having them go off the paper so it looks random. And so once you have it to where you like it, then you can heat set it. Okay, so I went ahead and heat embossed that, and it's really hard to see anything until you get the ink on. And I am starting with Glacier, which is a lighter color than the Broken China, which is the Tim Holtz. And I'm using one of these little ink blending tools. And then in a circular motion, you just want to start laying on the ink. And I do it in a circular motion. And I stamp off on my craft mat before I hit the paper, just so there's no lines. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, and it just takes some patience to get the ink on and then do the blending. And I'm really going over the entire piece of cardstock, and then we'll use the darker color on the outside. Now if you wanted to cut this down so it's smaller than the face of the card base, I would do that before you did the ink blending. And this one is going to be the 5.5 by 4 1/4 size. I did not trim it down. So I will go ahead and get that on there, and we'll be right back. And it does appear that I'm using the same sponge. I had a sponge already set for the Glacier, but I grabbed the tool instead. But they're pretty similar in color, so you shouldn't have any kind of blending of inks on your ink pad. And so with the darker color, I do like to have a darker edge. So again, in circular motion, I am going around the outer edge. And then you can start blending it inward, so there is no line of color change. So then you just keep doing that until you get it to the way you want it. And then once you get the color down how you like it, then take a paper towel and just rub it around the embossing, because there will be a little bit of the ink that is on the embossed images. So you can just go around in circular motions just to lift that off, so you're not transferring it to any place else where you don't want it. And then just set that piece aside to let it dry, or you can use your heat tool, and then we'll work on the stamped images. So the next thing I like to do is do the stamped images, and I do stamp them before I do the die cutting. And this color is the Pine Needles, and we're just inking that up, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And with this one, you want to go ahead and stamp 2 of the images, and then die cut it out. And I am using the smallest pine tree from the Perfect Pines. And then with the largest pine tree and then this dimensional piece, I'll cut it out in the darker. And these 2 pieces you cannot die cut together, so do the pine tree or this one first so that you don't break your dies, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have all my pine trees cut out, and I don't think I did a very good job lining this up, because here's the center of the trunk and my trunk is over here. So if you mess up like that, you can just turn it over and re-stamp it. So it's not really a big deal in my world, that just gives you an opportunity to try it again. So if that was going to bug you, just re-stamp it. And that's a little better. And the images don't fit perfectly, in my opinion, but it still works. Okay, and in my world that's good enough. And then I did do that piece that has the little branches, or I don't know what that's called, but you can just lift some of them up if you'd like. And then I did the sentiment from Cheer All Year, and I did fishtail the one side. So I'll just center it in this triple banner punch. And with this, you want to be careful you don't cut off some of the sentiment. So I would make it a little bit longer rather than shorter, just so that you have enough leeway room. And then I did ink the outside with a little bit of the Distress ink. Just because it looked so white otherwise. And you can do this or not, it's up to you. Just gives it a little bit more attitude. And then if you're like me, you want to cover up your stamp pad so you don't get ink all over the place. And then you want to decide where your trees are going to be. And I was trying to give the appearance of this big tree being closer, so then I stuck one of the smaller trees behind it, so it looked like it was in the background. And then when you cut out from the sparkly shimmer paper, I just freehand the slope, and this slope is a little bit taller than my sample card, so I'm going to tuck more of the tree in just so the sentiment fits. And then what I did was mark where the trees were, and I just put a little hash mark just so I know where to place the trees again. And I used the liquid glue for the two smaller trees. So I'm just going to lay that over the mark. And you can erase them a little darker than I had hoped, but it's okay. I'm okay with that. And then you just take some dimensionals to prop up the tree, and depending on how much you poofed these little things out, you may or may not see that underneath. And then for this piece, I did use some foam tape. So if you have some of this, you can use that here. Just lay that on top of the trees. Like so. And then I did pop up the sentiment. And you can do this, or you can just lay it flat if that's too much dimension on the card. Or the card topper, since I usually do card toppers. And let's see if I get that in the frame. And so there you go. Our first card in the series of Use It or Lose It. Hope you enjoyed that, guys, and happy crafting. And I will check you out in my next video. Bye-bye. Have a great day.